What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be breaking down The Flash's Season 8 Episode 19 trailer. So we're just going to start by reading the synopsis for the episode, and it doesn't really reveal a lot of information, obviously. It just says the Flash and team are in for the fight of their lives. Meanwhile, Iris discovers the cause of her time sickness. So yeah, obviously not a lot to go over there because we could have figured all that out just from the trailer itself. But now speaking of the trailer, let's get started with breaking that down. So we start with Barry inside Star Labs looking at some sort of like representation of all the forces: pink for the Sage Force, aka Psyche, green for the Still Force, aka Dion, and blue for the Strength Force, aka Alexa. I think this could be like where Barry realizes that all the forces are like negative or against him or something like that. In the start of the trailer, we also hear Barry say that this feels different and that what's going on is now personal. I'm assuming he's talking about what's going on with the forces here, but it also could likely mean that he's like referencing THAWNE. I'm assuming the Wells version because at the moment, the OG version can't remember that he was ever a villain. So I'm assuming that if Barry's talking about, this personal fight that's going on, it's either going to be with the forces, who are obviously going after Barry, it seems like, or it's going to be with the Wells THAWNE, who obviously that relationship has always been personal. Now, speaking of the OG version of THAWNE, in the next shot, we see him and Barry, and all that happens here is Barry speeds away from him. However, it did seem like, based off, I guess, their facial expressions, that there may have been some tension between the two in this scene. So maybe OG THAWNE, recovered some of his memories, or recovered, a flash of his memory, as he described in last episode. Or maybe he starts to, remember how much he hated the Flash, so maybe some of his feelings come back to him, something like that. I'm really hoping we get a teaser in regard to something similar to, this theory right here in this episode. Next, we get another shot of Dion talking to Wells THAWNE, and here they are talking about getting THAWNE his speed back, which Dion seems to agree to help do. Now, obviously, Dion never seemed like he would betray Team Flash in the past, but I guess it's possible he could have been turned negative somehow, or maybe this is a different version of Dion, like an entirely different version, perhaps a negative Still Force instead of a normal Still Force. I think that's a pretty likely theory, and I think one that can definitely happen. But yeah, if I had to make my best guess, I'd say all of the forces are going to now team up with Wells THAWNE and help him get his speed back, because if the Still Force is negative, I'd assume the Strength and Sage Force will be as well, and maybe even the Speed Force. That could be a really interesting mini storyline here if the Speed Force is maybe that's what's going to be affecting Barry's speed later in the episode. But yeah, I initially thought Wells THAWNE would be taking over all the forces, but now, as I just said, it looks like he might be receiving a little bit of a boost from all of them. So next we see Caitlin presumably getting into that chamber that we saw Mark working on at the end of episode 18, and if this is how Frost can come back, we could be seeing Frost as a part of Caitlin again. Or what I'd like to see is Killer Frost come back and take over Caitlin, sort of like season 3. I think that would be super interesting. So maybe Caitlin, she was super desperate to bring Frost back, but in doing so, a consequence, that being Killer Frost was the actual person who came back. I think that would be such a cool storyline. We also get a look at Mina Dawin in a couple of shots here with her upgraded suit. It looks pretty good, I'd have to say. We also get a look at Barry, who says something is wrong with his speed, and I'm going to assume it has something to do with the negative Speed Force. It could be because of, all the forces potentially becoming more negative. As we know, Barry is connected to the forces because of all that stupid stuff in Season 7. Or they could be taking more of a comic book route and say that as the negative Speed Force gets stronger, the regular Speed Force gets weaker. I think I'd rather see that, because in the comics, Barry and Reverse Flash are very closely, literally connected. They're not just enemies, they are literally connected. So seeing something like that, I think, would be really cool. Next, we see Mina and OG THAWNE looking at presumably two people in shock. If I had to guess, I'd say that these two people are probably Dion and Wells THAWNE. I can't wait for the interaction between OG and Wells THAWNE, by the way. That should be awesome. Anyways, why would Dion and Wells THAWNE presumably come after OG THAWNE? I think that they could be trying to restore his memory so then he could join them instead of fighting them with Team Flash. I talked about this next theory in my last episode, but what I think might happen is Wells THAWNE will end up dying in this storyline or in the season, but before he does, he'll somehow be able to restore OG THAWNE's memories, thus preserving the Reverse Flash name, and then maybe we'd go into season 9 with Matt Letcher's version of the OG THAWNE as the main villain. I think that would be absolutely awesome. Back to the trailer though, we also see Iris return here, as obviously we know from the synopsis that she'll find out the cause of her time sickness, which I think will definitely have something to do with the Reverse Flash. We also get a split-second shot toward the end of Barry in, I think, either Star Labs or Fast Track Labs. Now, I believe this room that Barry's in was the same room from earlier in the trailer where there was some, like, potential tension between OG THAWNE and Barry, and we see one of those, like, glass writing boards break. So what if this has more to do with OG THAWNE getting his memories back and starting to act more violent? I think that would be pretty cool. What I'm really hoping for is that they're just, like, slowly building up to OG THAWNE eventually becoming the Reverse Flash once again. But anyways, yeah, I'd basically say that's about it for the trailer. Make sure you guys comment your thoughts on this video down below, as well as your thoughts on the trailer and what else you guys think might happen in the rest of Season 8. And I'll see you guys in the next video.